Hello, everyone. This is Ashutosh Sinha. Pick your cup of coffee or tea, whatever you have, and let's take a thought break. For the next few minutes of the show, we'll step off the treadmill of life or work and hopefully reset your compass and find your true north, as I say. Today on the show, I have Mr. Vikram Chhachhi. He's someone who started his career journey long years back, more than 2 decades, as a journalist on the business and political side. But soon he traversed, and got into, hemisphere of leadership, hiring and leadership development. And as a search partner over the last many years, Vikram has definitely been someone who has lent a good advising hand to a lot of senior leaders in the industry. And as well as we have been in great touch for a long time. So Vikram, very warm welcome to you. And thanks for joining the show today.
Thanks a lot, Ashu. Good to be here.
So Vikram, I actually deliberately started off on that note. And, I've been talking to a lot of people and they get very interested about senior leaders like yourself. Usually one thinks that, hey, this is who you are today and you arrived on the scene. But you obviously started sometime like everyone does. And you probably had a shift in your mind or career connected to your inner calling and what you wanted to do. Any stories on that?
Sure. There are a bunch of them, but I'll stick to the ones that I think made the difference to me as a professional. So if I was to just step back and talk about what I did my education in, and I did my graduation in computer sciences. I did start my initial part of my career with sales and marketing of computers. I said, if I'm not going to be sitting in front of a computer and coding, I will go out and sell them, primarily because I think some of the things that you find about yourself early enough in your professional career is, how you are as an individual, what interests you, what drives you, is it relationships, meeting people, etc., etc. But I also had another passion, which was a secret passion. I actually loved to write. And while I was in college, I actually got published twice as a student in the India Today magazine.
Wow.
And I actually had sent in my resume from college to them. And that was, I think, the first sort of inflection point when I began my professional career, because I did get a call from them pretty much after I had started working, asking me if I was still interested in a role on the editorial side with the India Today group, which set me thinking. It's a very long story, and the trials and tribulations I went through. My parents stood firmly behind me, saying that, look, do what you want to do. And what drives you and what your passion is. But most of the other people were completely aghast. And that's when I started my journalistic career for a good 7-8 years, starting with writing on technology and computers, moving to business, doing mainstream political journalism, including covering Ayodhya in 1992 from Flashpoint and Ground Zero. So that was the first part of
well, you were like in serious journalism in that case, my friend.
Yes.
So you're really, I
Yes.
never realized that. Okay.
Yes.
So that's really interesting. I mean, and exciting actually. To how did that transition happen? Like, how did you move into being a leadership search partner, someone who deals with helping other people in the careers and developing very senior leaders in the industry?
Sure. Again, it was a complete call from out of the blue from one of the firms where I started my leadership advisory and hiring journey. And when I was called, the question I asked was, why me, or what would I do in a profession of like yours? I'm a journalist. Now, I just want to deliberate on this point a bit, Ashu, that whenever there are changes or big changes in one's careers, and I can talk from my personal example, but also what I've seen of business leaders, is it's a fine balance between a push and a pull. The push in my instance at this stage was I was 29 years of age. I had been made a senior assistant editor at Business Today magazine, and I was doing a desk job. Now, at that age, if you are a serious journalist, you need to be out in the trenches and doing some serious coverage, which
Yeah.
I was missing. And that's the reason I entertained this call. And when I asked the question as to what will I do in your profession, and that's when I understood the power of data and research that goes into this profession. And I just found it very compelling as a story. I took my time, but probably took that leap of faith and entered into the profession. It wasn't an easy transition at all. The first 24 months, I kept asking myself whether I'd done the right thing, but something kept telling me that stick with it. These things take time.
Yeah, very well said. And thanks for kind of relating that little story, because no one can really get that. That's been your long-winded journey. So that's very interesting. Leadership space is a strange one, especially today, the way things are going on. People have a bit of a dilemma sometimes between doing what they're doing. And then there have been leaders, and friends who've been calling and said that they've had moments to reflect that all they've been doing for the last 20 years, 25 years, even younger leaders at 15 years, 18 years, where is it leading them to? Are they really in the pursuit of something which is not going to ever end? And then there's a second debate, and I'm almost throwing this at you, Vikram, to use your journalist hat and your vast search or search industry and leadership hat to respond to this, is that, this dilemma is that, do I get out of the rat race, as people call it, as this little cliche to say that, but do I get out of the rat race and follow a pursuit of something I love to do? But is that really going to get me money anyway? Because I'm so hooked on to the fact that I have to get a monthly income. And that's a typical dilemma leaders face today. Even when they know that they're drying up on the nectar, which was first getting them onto what they were doing earlier.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's a very pertinent question and an important one that you ask. First of all, and again, all I'm going to say is coming out of the many conversations one has in this profession with all kinds of people and from very varying backgrounds. But here are some common themes. Is there a shelf life to your so-called corporate career in this day and age? I don't think so. I think increasingly individuals need to decide really, how long they want to be within the corporate world, which by itself is changing actually as you am seeing it, on an ongoing basis. I think what should be core and what usually comes out, it's very logical. It's not something that people discover, but what usually comes out is if your heart and mind are both in what you're doing and your pursuit of your professional life or your career, etc. That's what keeps you there, because that's the balance that needs to drive you forward. If your heart is not in it, your mind is in it. Over a period of time, there are behaviors that start defining you as an individual, because you are in the pursuit of something. You're fiercely ambitious. You want that pot of gold, and you will pursue it at whatever cost. And they're very, they're sort of varying degrees on that path that different individuals take. If only your heart is in something and your mind is not in it, especially in your professional career, then we're talking another language in terms of, are you focused? Are you skilled? Are you upskilled or not skilled? And the reason I'm giving you, this context, Ashu, is really what starts then helping people figure out what they're really happy doing, what they want to do at all costs, and spend time on and work hard on, and then be able to differentiate themselves. Unfortunately, it's called the rat race today because a lot of kids graduating from school, from business school, are looking at labels, are looking at big brands, without really answering the question to themselves is, with whatever limited experience and knowledge they have, is is this really what I want to do? What will make me happy? What is my passion? That is always on the back burner, and that's why it's called the rat race.
Wow, that's one of the best ways I've heard that get summarized, Vikram. So that's very well put. And that actually takes me to the second part of the same question or the dilemma, that do people necessarily have to take a step back in their career if they really want to get off? And if we call this the rat race or the movement, or is there a way out of this? And you've hired, and you have kind of consulted hundreds of senior leaders and mid-level leaders, as well as very senior leaders and CEOs. And no one can answer this better than you.
Yeah. Again, a very pertinent question, Ashu. And I mean, I know you know this better than most people because you are in the business. Unfortunately, and I call it the whole batch dilemma, which is stigmatized in the corporate world, whether it's large organizations that are hiring or even startups, most organizations, which is if people decide to take an alternate path, there is a lot more questioning around, why did she or he do that? Were they not good enough? Why did so-and-so take a break in their career? Why so-and-so particular year batch pass out from a B school and still not made it to a corporate VP after 20 years? Now, all people, as you and I know, are individuals, right? Individuals will have different areas of performance, different capabilities and abilities, etc., etc. But unfortunately, till date, we just keep boxing them in. So I think it's going to take some more time for corporations, especially, to start realizing that, more and more, as the future of work changes, as people guide their own careers and professional lives by themselves rather than being driven by a template that an organization gives you, these things will start going away. These mindsets will start going away. But it's going to take some more time. Having said that, I am a big supporter of people and individuals and executives who are clear about what their path is and what they want to choose. As long as, we go back to what we talked about, if your heart and mind is in it and you really want to make a difference, on that path or on that journey, and, not look at the pot of, don't be focused on the pot of gold. The pot of gold will follow the moment you differentiate yourself and create something outstanding. I'm a big believer of that.
Nice. No, absolutely. In fact, I'm personally on a kind of a mission here, Vikram, that I'm trying to see that how can I help people, and I like the way you put it, dissociate that rainbow which ends at the pot of gold, that pursuit of that, from their being able to be successful within the organization. It's not about leaving the company, right? But within, or leaving a job, or everyone doesn't have to become an entrepreneur, because people always think that, hey, the only way out is to be on your own. But that's not necessarily the answer. But how can one do that within the framework of, like you said, unbox themselves a little bit, declutter themselves a little bit, and be able to do something which is really meaningful and what they really like within the precincts of the organization, and still get that box of gold, or still get the pot of gold where they want to head with? I think that's the code we have to crack. And I personally am on a mission to that. So any quick thoughts on that, then we'll move to another topic.
So absolutely. Look, as I said, and we touched upon how the future of work is changing, and how organizations are going to redefine themselves and their people and what they do. It's becoming increasingly, familiar now in most work environments, whether you want to be an individual contributor or you want to be a manager. And there's a clear career path that most organizations, most progressive organizations, large, global, including local organizations, are showing individuals. Now that is, I think, clear distinction from where we were even 10 or 15 years ago, where, whether you liked it or not, you needed to become a manager. And when I say a manager, it's a manager of people. So that's your primary job. And your secondary job is, what you're skilled in, and what you can contribute. The individual contributors are the ones who are very clear about, sticking to their craft, as I call it, because that's their passion, that's their high. They don't want to manage teams. They will work with teams. They will work in a team, or they will collaborate, because that is one of the salient features of working in a large corporation or organization. But they are masters of their craft, and they're individual contributors. So I think that's one clear path that's emerging. And to your question about being able to do that and contribute in organizations, clearly, I mean, it's just becoming clearer and clearer as we go ahead. And thanks to these times and the pandemic, it's just acted as a catalyst for all these things.
Yeah, I completely agree. In fact, I agree with you that the future of work is about really redefining the way people have seen careers traditionally, and gone are the days necessarily of being the general of a large force and driving them forward in the war path to conquer markets. And I mean, those things will continue even now, but I think the
Absolutely.
emergence, like you rightly said, is probably the individual sharp player also has a big role now. And there's a healthy mix. Both of them have to bring in, where the individual player can kind of marry in his career within the organization.
Absolutely. And just to give you a very quick example of how individuals can take that call, if you look at somebody like a Sundar Pichai at Google, now he's the father of Chrome. So he's a very hardcore, strong product technologist, right? He wanted to accept the challenge of becoming a manager, and that's why his hand went up also for the CEO's job, right? So you can do it at any stage in your career, but whatever you want to do or whatever you are accepting, you have to be completely focused and be accountable for that, because this is not another job that somebody's handing over to you. It's total accountability.
Wow, very well said. And you have to pitch in your 100% on that. And Sundar Pichai is a great example. So super.
Yeah.
In the same light, connecting it to the future of work and how companies will view leaders in the future. If you were to pick top 3 or 4 skills or attributes with an employer of the future, and I'm being slightly generalist here because it will vary by a pharma versus a health versus a technology or a retail organization. But in general, in a leadership trait, what are the top 3 or 4 things people will look for a 35-year-old and maybe a 45, 50-year-old, and not from an age perspective, but from an experience perspective, I'm saying.
Sure. So, I'm trying to be as industry or sector agnostic as possible, and therefore we'll probably talk a little more about leadership traits. And we've heard all kinds of coinages, all kinds of leadership models and styles over the past so many decades. But here is clearly what my thought is. From what one is seeing, what is happening in the world of business and commerce, and to organizations, I think the first and the foremost will be really about where your organization or business stands on the human capital plane, which is your people. What are the kind of people that will build your organization? How will you empower them? How will you make sure that their skills remain contemporary? So the entire human capital angle. It will all start with that, because even more so as we get into the next few months and few years, I think people will define organizations whether they win or they can't win. Second, I think culture, transparency, inclusion, diversity, unless it is front and center as part of your business, you're not going to survive. People will have so many other options, because guess what? Whether you like it or not, as a business, all your competitors will be doing that. And these are not buzzwords any longer. These are, like I said, center and core to your business strategy. Of course, you know where you want to play, which means product, services, and you better know what innovation there is. I mean, just to give you a small anecdote, everyone has been using and abusing the word called disruption until the middle of March this year. That's when the entire world got to know really what disruption is. You know what I mean, right?
Yes, absolutely.
It disrupted everything.
True.
Right?
Yeah, very true.
So,
very true.
So what do you do? That's real disruption. So, you know, how do you keep looking into the future? And again, I'm not of the opinion that you know rip apart your rear view mirror. Keep it for a reference point. Don't look into the rear view mirror, but keep it as a reference point, because all your learnings are there. Of course, your focus has to be in the front, but your learnings, you don't throw them away, because you know that's what stand you in good stead as businesses. You know, last but not the least is I think we just as the world itself, and therefore the world of business, we need to have and bring respect and kindness into the workplace. I think, you know, most leaders until very recently have been caught on the wrong side of the scale. You know, some of them completely on the wrong side. They've abused the powers that they've had. But really, respect for every individual, every piece of work, every job, and kindness. That's what is clearly what is going to make people stick with you. You know, and differentiate you.
I believe that you said something very simple but very, very important. Kindness, wherever it has lasted and has been led from the top, as a true sense, has actually shown results to people, where leaders have kind of put in their heart to turn around businesses in these times. So, and for themselves personally. So it's really, really good. Top 2 traits for a 35-year-old young leader trying to make his career. You know, what should he be focused to develop himself or herself on? That's question number 1. And you could mix that up with another thing. Top 2 industries which you feel, you know, people should arm their career towards, because they also started saying that some industries are dying now, given this March disruption, like you said, and it's catalyzed that you know, speed of death, as they would call it. So, which is the sunrise? And sunrise is like a cliched word here, but more focused on which is the industry people should start building their game on and bet on. This is like $1 million question in everyone's mind nowadays, especially very young leaders who are coming from campus or in the middle of the career.
So, you know, just a preamble to your questions. I'm just going to state that, look, tech and big tech is all pervasive. So, you know, I'm not going to refer to that as an industry, because, you know, every business has to be a tech business today. So, you know, whatever I talk about has to have a layer of tech. I think very clearly, Ashu, businesses which will bring, you know, sustainability of what they do, again, to their core, will be key businesses, whether it is renewables or you know, homegrown businesses like organic businesses like, you know, medicinal and plant extracts, all sustainable, or it is a business about you know, reviving your oceans, because it'll eventually have an impact on the planet and the earth and where it goes. Now, these might sound like, you know, sort of off the mark kinds of businesses, but honestly, that's where the world is headed. So, unless if you're clear about, and renewables, will have everything in it, including electric vehicles and solars and et cetera, et cetera. When I'm talking about sustainability, I'm talking about, what is going to make, or what are the businesses that will fix the biodiversity in our oceans. It gives life to everything else on Earth. Similarly, when I talk about electric vehicles, how are you going to make your business not about passenger vehicles, but electric transportation systems, which will mass move people. People should be thinking about that. So, there are a lot of people who, make fun of people like Elon Musk and, some of the others, but they are thinking on those lines. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has set up such a beautiful, large business. It is a not-for-profit, but I think they're doing some of the most path-breaking work to address humanitarian crisis, to address healthcare services, et cetera, across the world. Those are the businesses of the future, honestly, if you ask me. And like I said, everything has to be on, on tech-enabled, tech platforms. So, I mean, tech is everywhere. I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm really sort of thinking about the future.
No, it does. Actually, I'm happy you answered that way because, and including me, maybe when this question is typically asked to people, they would probably say robotics, technology, AI, biotics, healthcare. And what I really like the way you responded back was, those are given. Those are across, that they're substrata to everything else. But
yeah.
You put it very well. It's industries of the future where things will have to really plug in, and people who are at the core of it are obviously connecting to the future. So yeah, that's very well put. Very well put. Slightly different topic. Let's focus on youngsters who are fresh out of college, and they often look for advice, which is not very easy to come, but because they get confused with so many different people telling them different things. But if you were telling them one thing to look towards to build their career on, and you earlier alluded to the fact that do what you would be passionate about, or put your heart into it, 100%, your mind and soul into it. But our campus system and processes and everything is built on. I was talking to a young grad coming out recently, and she was kind of worried that she had to pick up this one offer and obviously not touch any other offers after that. So there are these systemic constraints people have when they go out into the world, when they step out in the world, and the first career choice may not be the right choice for them. I'm almost circling back to where we started from, that what would be your advice to youngsters to be able to get to where they can really be good at?
So, again, whenever I have these conversations with youngsters, especially, those who are just getting out of school, they're contemplating whether they want to, do graduate, what we call postgraduate in India, a graduate program, or should they get some experience before that? All of us have heard about, gap years becoming more and more common, where kids want to, figure out really where the interests lie. Some of them take up internships. In this day and age, and thanks to the pandemic, we're talking about gap semesters, forget about years. So now, I think it's a positive thing that they are doing, especially if they want to feel out the areas that they want, that they think they're interested in. Because guess what? When you try and figure some of those areas out, some of them actually come back pretty much quickly within the first week saying, hey, no, I'm not interested in this. If this is the way it's going to work, I'm really not interested. I honestly feel that, if any youngster who's getting out of school into the workplace, if he or she is clear about, let me give you an example, that they want to do set design work. If that is the clarity of thought, they should just go ahead and pursue that. Go to the best school, go to the best, set designers, become an apprentice, and go and do that. As long as you're extremely clear. If they are not, it is okay picking up whatever you think you're going to be interested in, because unless if you try it, you really are not going to figure out whether your interest really lies there or not. I think in today, all of these kids are smart. They're so connected. They're not just connected here in India, they're connected globally.
That's true.
They have so many of these conversations, and there are some thoughts and shapes of thoughts in their mind already. But, honestly, they should just feel their way around for the first couple of years, maybe 3, maybe even 5 years. It's a very different world we live in today. And there are so many options, some that you might just stumble upon when you're doing something else. That honestly would be my advice. I give that advice to youngsters.
No, I think that's great advice. And I'm taking it as well. I have 2 teenage boys, who are heading into college.
Absolutely.
So I personally think that's a great advice. Yeah.
In our experience, we went through that with our daughter. And now she's, she's 23 and she's got 4 or 5 different, paddle tracks. She's having fun, and by the way, she interned at two large corporations, where in the first corporation during her internship, she was, all she did was for the first 6 months, just make Excel sheets for people's expense accounts. And that was it. She was very clear that this is it. I'm not going to work in a company like this. So, let them figure it out.
I guess, and that's well said, right? Because there is enough of the choice menu out there. So why not touch a few things and not rush into attaching yourself and saying, this is where I'm going to make my career, necessarily. And I think if parents hear this today, some of them may just get worried about that, is that the right thing to do? But I personally feel I completely agree with you from what I've also said, learned, heard, and spoken to when young people who have actually made it big, is that, yes, they have kind of felt, touched around a little bit to understand what is that they really like to do and what is they're good at. And then they get into it. So there's no harm in giving it that time. Excellent, Vikram. Vikram, we can go on talking, and I think it's just an amazing conversation going on here. And but I'll have to break this towards to wrap up the conversation, because we want to keep it short, and hopefully people who are holding their cup of coffees or teas would be probably done with it in a few minutes. So, last question is a cliched one, but please answer it for me. What is your mantra for success and in life and career?
No, it's not a cliched question, Ashu. Absolutely. And if you call it the mantra for success, and I've seen it develop specifically over the latter part of my career, is keep things simple for yourself and at your workplace. And really what I mean by that is, the world of business is as complicated, or can get as complicated as you want to make it. But commerce and the world of business is really not a complicated thing, right? So, keep it simple, be true to yourself and all your partners, colleagues, your customers and clients that you work with. I find far too many people being fearful of what impact is going to happen if they were to give you the bad news or tell you the correct data and facts. And honestly, it's not worth it. Be true to yourself, be true to what you do. Your passion has to be your work, and your work has to be your passion. Last but not the least, Ashu, what has worked for me is, if you have a set of principles for yourself in life, they become principles for everything. Those get reflected even in the workplace. So, just understand what your own principles are. If you'd ask me personally, I love relationships. I love building new relationships and keeping up with old ones. I am very clear about keeping toxicity and negativity away. I will go to any lengths to just, keep that out. Call it, organizational politics, etc., this, that, the other. So, I mean, not my cup of tea, because it will not make me happy. If I'm not happy, I'm not going to do a good job.
Yes.
Stuff like that, because, it'll get reflected even in your professional life. So self-awareness has to be high if you have to do a good job of your professional career. And do dream, dreams come true. So everyone should dream and then try and live those dreams.
That's a superb note on which we're going to wrap up, because I like the way you put it. I mean, people are afraid to actually to dream sometimes, and why be afraid? I mean, and I think that's where we will kind of try to nail this here, is because it connects so beautifully. I mean, when you said that, when people dream, they actually develop a visual of where they want to get somewhere in life, and that in hand creates actions which will get them there. So, and there's been a lot of research and work which has been done on this, so which proves that. So, excellent, Vikram. Any parting words? Really good, conversation. I extremely appreciate your candidness, which I've always known you for, and thank you so much for sharing your wonderful advice with so many people.
Super. Thanks, Ash.